Alright, you made it to Chapter 12, User Support Utility Toolkit. Alright, this is the last chapter of the book. After this, next week, I think you have your exam in week 15, and then during the regular finals week, you have a project that's due. So, take a look at Angel. So, last chapter of the book, and then next week, week 15, you actually have your exam, and then week 16, you have your final project due. So if you have any questions about any of that stuff, let me know. Alright, and then this week, in your assignments, you just have a discussion and a quiz, and you're all set. Alright, now on to the chapter. Alright, so not a whole lot of objectives this week. So, support utilities. The purpose, diagnose and repair problems, but really the big one is to increase your productivity. You know, most of us when we're in college and working, on home PCs and things like that, we view, oh, why do I need all this stuff? I can always just reload a PC by myself, things like that. But when you're in the corporate environment and you're reloading, 15, 20 PCs a day in addition to all the other duties you have, you can't just sit there and wait and hit the button and then wait and then hit check the whatever it is for the install. And that's why you need some kind of support utilities. One, to help you diagnose things faster, and two, to help you just get your routine jobs through those faster. Alright, and then they put the little caveat here that coverage of utility programs and information resources in the chapter does not imply a recommendation. So all they're saying is, just because we talked about it here does not mean we're actually recommending you to use that. So anytime before you buy a utility or use a utility, you should research it first and try it in a test environment. The last thing you want to do is just download something from the internet and go slap it on your production network. That's just a recipe for failure. So all utility software should be tested. And then when you're thinking about making that decision, you want to look for features, price, limitations. You'd be surprised some of the license limitations that you get with some of the software. Alright, when you buy software, there's a lot of different categories. There's freeware, which anybody can use anywhere. There's shareware, which most of the time is like a limited trial time or something like that. There's donationware where it's free but they'd like a donation. There's open source, there's commercial, so a lot of different ways to get your software. Alright, so software provisions, there's always usually a privacy policy that's just from the vendor to tell you, hey, here's how we expect you to use our stuff. There's an end user license agreement, which is the legal contract between you and the vendor. And there's often opt-in checkboxes that allow you to install additional software or to give them additional rights, like to email you a whole bunch of spam. Alright, so again, cost, features, download instructions, all that stuff changes frequently. A lot of these little freeware programs and stuff drastically change over the years. So just because you used it last year doesn't mean it's going to work the same this year if you're using the new version. Alright, and then with the licensing, whether it's open source, freeware, shareware, somebody needs to be tracking that licensing, printing it out and having a copy available. Because the last thing you want is for the licensing to change, and then you get caught and you're like, well, wait a minute, the old license said this, but you don't have a copy of the old license. Alright, trial versions obviously typically allow you to try something, but they'll have some features disabled. And really like the free antivirus that you buy, it's really a trial version. Like Malwarebytes. If you download Malwarebytes, it works the whole way. They're not going to give you a malware program that doesn't work. So they want the program to work, but you're not going to get all the features. It won't automatically run. It won't automatically update. So all that automatic features, are disabled. You have to do them manually in the trial version. Alright, and then some software utilities are offered as free downloads but require payment later on, things like that. The opt-in checkboxes may default to permit the vendor to sell your user information to a third party. So make sure you're checking that stuff. You would be surprised at the amount of these freeware and open source vendors that sell this software and stuff or give it for free. And then they sell their list, like you have to put in your email address and your name and that kind of stuff. And then they sell those lists to all these different companies, and next thing you know, your box is filled with spam. Alright, you want to check the specifications for hardware on the operating system to make sure that obviously you have the right stuff. Make sure you back everything up, including the registry, before using some of these tools. And some educational organizations and businesses have restrictions on the download and use of software, of utility software. Basically, almost any company you go to, any business, has some kind of software policy where they're like, you can't just go and install something on your PC. It has to be approved. Obviously, you guys are going to be the IT people, so you would be the ones doing the approving. All right, categories of software utilities. Hardware support, hey, is my memory working right? Is my CPU overheating? System information, just pulling information from the PCs. Software support for the operating system, software support for the applications. You get the idea. So some of these utilities allow you to do stress tests, like there's a CPU Z or CPU burn-in that'll actually stress your CPU at 100%, and actually you can set the percentages, so if you just want to run 80, to test your overclocking to make sure it's not going to overheat, things like that. Some of this stuff goes on your PC and searches all your hardware, and then it says, oh, hey, here's the drivers that you have, and here's the ones that need updated. Other ones diagnose, your hard disk. Others diagnose your memory modules, that kind of stuff. So, burn-in test, test the hardware to make sure that it's stable. And we typically see this in either brand new PC builds or when we're overclocking. And there's a lot more than just these ones listed. And actually, I don't even know how old some of these are. So some examples of use, they may report on what hardware is installed, what software is installed, how things are configured. They may list drivers or services during startup. I had one utility years ago, and I sure wish I would have kept it. I don't know, although I don't know if it was updated. But anyway, it would actually show you, how like you go to, actually let me show you real quick. If I go to Task Manager and I do processes, it shows you all these processes. It would color them with red, yellow, and green and show you, like green was you absolutely needed this. This was probably an operating system file. You're good. Yellow was this is probably good, but you should probably check into it. And red was these are known, bad things that you absolutely don't need. Like if I go in here and look, I'll see things like this is my antivirus service running. But what is TCS help? That may just be a help file that's available if I need it. But how many times am I actually using the help file? And if I click on it, it would load anyway. So what's the benefit of having this preloaded and sucking up, so much memory? But if you check yours at home and you do this, you'll find that there's a whole bunch of other stuff like Java. If you've got Java, the Java updaters on there, Adobe PDF Viewer runs a service. There's all these different services that'll be running on your PC when you start up, sucking up memory that you don't even need. So that's just one example. Alright, so here's two examples, Belarc Advisor and WinBoot Info. There are a ton of utilities out there that will actually pull information from your PC. But again, before you ever do any of this stuff, make sure that you do it in a test environment. Like I typically will try to do this on a virtual machine if I'm at my house, if I don't have a test PC available. Because the last thing I want to do is run some free software that kills my computer with viruses. Alright, so other examples, some allow you to identify and control which software gets launched. Some will allow you to automatically do different things or automatically start certain programs. Some will clean stuff from your registry. CCleaner, which is short for crap cleaner, is the awesome one for your registry. Some allow you to perform a registry task like to back it up and things like that. Or check the keys easily. If you have followed your book and you've kind of like played with the registry at all, it's kind of cumbersome the way the tools that come with Windows. But there's a lot of third-party tools that really allow you to manage the registry effectively. And then there's those old school utilities that give you the DOS box, and you can do the Windows command line stuff. Alright, you always want to have a Windows recovery disk, and sometimes different programs will give you, hey, I can create this recovery disk for you, make it easier for you, da-da-da. Then you talk about ISO image. An ISO image is an image file of a CD. If somebody hands me a Windows 7 CD, and I just go and I copy the files, and then I put that on a CD, that CD will not run and it will not install Windows 7. all CDs have like a table of contents and something to tell the CD where to go to find different files and like the instructions on how to run that CD. Well, that's not a file. It's not a file that can be copied. That's part of the ISO image. So when I create an ISO, then I create I'm actually cloning the CD and I get everything that I need. So an ISO is just a CD or DVD image that includes everything you need to run that image. And there's a free little program called Image Burn, and I think it's IMGBURN. So they abbreviate the word image. But that's real easy. You can pop it in, say, hey, create an image from this disk, or burn an image onto this disk, and it's very easy to use, and it's free, and it's safe. All right, so here's some other suggestions. Registry cleaner, blah. You want to use CCleaner, and some other ones. Great. So here's Komodo System Cleaner. Most of these system cleaners aren't worth the time it takes to install them on your PC. So be careful about downloading anything like this. I've seen a lot of PCs that had these system cleaners and Windows optimization crap on there, and really a lot of them are just means of getting making a window into your PC or a hole in your PC so they can start hammering it with spam and crap and pop-ups, and it's terrible. So make sure you stay away from that stuff unless it's from an approved vendor or a known commercial vendor like Komodo. All right, auditing, and this is where most IT departments fail. They don't audit, and audit is looking for things proactively. We'll give you an example. If Joe Donut is trying to get into the HR PC, every day whenever he's got time, he'll try to guess the password 3 times, and then it'll lock out for 15 minutes. So every hour or so, Joe Donut tries this, and he does this for 6 months, and then he finally gets into the PC. Well, if I was auditing my files and looking for, times when people were denied access, and I noticed that Joe Donut was constantly denied access to the HR PC, I could have stopped him there. Probably after, once I see like a week or two of him trying to get in, it's like, hey, why are you trying to do this? If somebody does it once, it's an accident. If somebody does it twice, depends on the situation. Maybe they just don't understand how to access, like a shared HR resource. But when somebody's doing it 4 or 5 times a day, every day for 2 weeks, you know that they're trying to break into it. But sadly, most of the time we don't audit those events, and then we wait for HR to actually get cracked and lose a file, and then somebody to be spreading that file on the internet showing what everybody's making before we take action. And by then it's too late. The guy is already gone. He's left the company. He sold the information to some other group, and then you have that. All right, other tools out there. There are some that will to kind of show you your patch status and where you are in relation to the current recommended build. And there are other utilities that will help you uninstall programs when Windows, the add delete thing, will not work. A lot of times these malware files are designed that when you click uninstall, they just say can't be uninstalled. You want to remove this from your list. And if you hit yes, now you've still got this program installed on your PC, but it's now hidden from the add remove program list. So you need a special utility to get rid of it. And that's where things like Malwarebytes comes in. Malware is really anything that's not categorized. If it's not adware or spyware or a virus or a worm or something like that, it's called malware. And then Malwarebytes is designed to find all that stuff. All right, so here's some tools that they recommend. Again, I'm sorry, they do not recommend these. They're just giving you examples. All right, then here they mentioned about utility suites, like they had Norton Internet Tools, and it was supposed to, give you some kind of software firewall and antivirus and download protection and stuff like that. So it's just a suite of tools all bundled together. All right, here's some examples. This is a sample from the Windows 7 System Health Report. And again, most of this stuff can be found, like Windows has these utilities built into it. It's just knowing where they are and figuring out how to use them. Most of the third-party ones are just much easier to run. All right, other programs allow you to track performance of your PC and find the bottleneck. What's the slow point in my PC? In the majority of PCs, the slowest point is the hard drive. And why is that? Because the hard drive is mechanical. It has a motor that spins, and it spins a platter, and it reads it just like an old record player. So there's no way that's ever going to be as fast as like your CPU and your memory, which runs at the speed of electricity. All right, other stuff allows you to diagnose, faults or give you a dashboard, like a real-time display of what's going on in your PC. Typically, we see things like temperature and processor utilization. And there's several of those out there. And you can even go to your task manager and do performance, and you can even see here's what my CPU utilization is. Here's my memory utilization. So some of these utilities like this will show you, hey, here's what CPU model I have, here's what the clock speeds are, here's the current load. Some of them are more like this, where you get graphs, and you can do like, here's my CPU load, here's my CPU clock speed, here's where the turbo boost is kicking in, things like that. And then you got stuff with like little speed gauges, and you can actually put these up on your screen, like in the little corner somewhere, so you can kind of see, where things are at. Then other utilities allow you to grab this gauge and kind of put it somewhere on your desktop. That way you can kind of see it as you're doing stuff. All right, so you get the idea. So there are some examples. I've never even heard of any of these examples. I don't know where they're getting them from. All right, so examples of use, to test vulnerabilities, to track to see if they're stopping spam, to stop, these stupid browser bars that keep popping up. I had a friend brought me a PC a couple months ago to get fixed, and because she said her internet didn't work. And I'm not kidding you, she had 36 toolbars in her browser. She was running Internet Explorer, and she had 36 toolbars. I mean, a toolbar I never even heard of before. But I digress. All right, so there's some Shields Up. That's a good name. All right, bandwidth speed test. This is a very interesting one, and I'm not necessarily that one, but whenever I'm having internet problems, I have one at home, and I have to go figure out what version it is because I'm at school now. But it puts a little window in my bottom right corner, and it kind of shows me a bar graph of my internet bandwidth, and that way I can kind of see if my bandwidth is kind of coming or going. Because sometimes you'll have intermittent problems where your bandwidth will just drop for a minute or two and then go back up. It's like, why am I getting these big lag spikes? And then you can actually email that to the Time Warner Cable guy and say, look, dude, here it is. It's not me, it's you. All right, so examples of use. Some stuff will allow us to back up files and folders easily. Some will allow us to convert files from one format to another. Some allow us to try to recover deleted files from media. Remember, anytime you delete files from the hard drive, all it does is it marks that file for deletion. So until you put another file over top of that file in the exact same space on the hard drive, that file's not deleted. It's just marked for deletion. And that's why most of the time these guys get caught, because they go into their hard drives and they're like, oh, I need to delete this. Oh, and then I'll delete it from my trash can. Oh, now it's gone. Well, no, it's not gone. It's just marked for deletion. Pieces and stuff are still there. It can still be recovered. You need a special program to do stuff like that. All right, so here's some different examples I give you. All right, for us gamers, benchmarking software is pretty big. Passmark is the big one. Everybody wants to know your Passmark score, so you guys can compare and stuff. And you can see, hey, when it went from this graphic card to this graphic card, my Passmark score went up 200 points. Or when I upgraded to this speed of memory, my Passmark score went up. Things like that. Some allow you to optimize your PC by adjusting configurations. Some of the stuff is pretty gimmicky too, like the maximum size of a packet is actually 1522 kilobytes. So that's the size, or maybe bytes. Maybe that's just bytes. But anyway, that's the maximum size. It's called MTU, Message Transmit Unit, and it was typically set for 1500. And that way, if for some reason it goes a little bit above that, it's still okay. But your Ethernet connection, your data cable, will only fit a packet that's 1522. So some of these utilities will try to bump up your MTU size to 1522 to add a couple extra kilobytes of speed to get things done a little bit faster. Now, you're not going to notice any improvement in that. But what you are going to notice is every once in a while you'll have issues because some of your packets are not getting through because they're actually being generated a little bit too big, and they're actually 1523. And now all of a sudden your line won't support them. So you have to be careful with what you do. Anytime one of these utilities recommends something to you, you need to research that setting and make sure you understand it before you just go click on weird stuff. Alright, some free up disk space by erasing temporary memory, temporary locations. And again, even when you download something, there's something in your download folder and then it's stored somewhere else. There's so many different places where these things are stored, it's crazy. And then there's always disk defragmenting. Remember, your CD is like a record player. Your hard drive is like a record player. It starts at the beginning and it kind of like works its way out. So if I start working on a Windows file, let's say it writes on the third circle in. Excuse me. And then I install some other programs and I do some stuff. Then I come back to the Windows file and I write more to it. Well, the changes that I do are now going to be on circle 15. So when I go to open that file, I got to read from circle 3 to 15. So now I got to read all that stuff. Well, what defragmenting does is it takes the stuff that you have on circle 3 and the stuff you have on circle 15 and puts it all in the same circle so I can access it faster. And there's a much better example. I'm much better showing that in class than I am through verbal communication. So there's the different other ones. And again, CCleaner is the good one for registries. So here's some information from benchmarking, what my CPU grade is, what my graphics card grade is, the speed of my memory, disk, and then an overall speed. So as gamers, we typically, and PC enthusiasts, we typically try to compare our overall scores with each other to see who has the fastest PC. But don't forget, benchmark scores aren't really realistic because once your video card is hitting 50, 60 frames per second, your human eye can't really distinguish past that. So going from 50 frames per second to 100 frames per second, you're probably not going to notice a difference. Most people don't realize when they're playing a game, the more items on the screen, the lower your frames per second become. And you'll be playing a game and your frames per second will bounce between 30 and 70 and you'll never even catch it. You'll have no idea. Once it gets below 30, then you might start actually noticing the lag or some flickering on the screen or something like that. But for the human eye, most of the time, something has to be below 30 frames per second for you to actually even notice it. So spending an extra $400 on a video card to get an extra 20 frames per second when you're already at 70 or 90 is kind of a waste. Alright, then there's security programs. It'll scan your hard drive, scan memory, attachments, different things like that, and web pages for viruses before they open it. Most people tend to not like those because they slow everything down. When I go to an internet page, it has to scan the page. So the internet page doesn't open very fast. Alright, there's malware, spyware, all these different things. Really, you only need two pieces of software. You need an antivirus, and you only need one antivirus because some antiviruses detect viruses in other antiviruses because of the way they work. So if you have 2 or 3 antiviruses, they may disable each other. Plus, they'll slow your system down because now every file that you open has to be scanned 3 times. So the last thing you want to do is install more than one antivirus. So pick a good antivirus and then match it with a malware program like Malwarebytes. If you have both of those installed, you'll be totally protected. Alright, there are other stuff like software firewalls that you can run, and that way if something gets past your firewall, like your PC will come up. There was a good one called Zone Alarm years ago. I don't know how effective that still is. I don't really run a software firewall now. I just run my regular one at home. Alright, then they talk about hidden files and rootkits. And their definition of a rootkit is just malware that permits viruses and spyware to be installed on a user's PC without his or her knowledge. So a rootkit does it behind your back, where a regular virus or something, you have to click on it in order to make it happen, where a rootkit will do it by itself. There's password guessers, password crackers, there's brute force, there's dictionary attacks. Most security that we have today can be cracked. In the wireless class, we crack WEP, WPA, and WPA2 passwords. But we crack very easy passwords. So while WPA and WPA2 are very strong, they're only as strong as the user's password. If I use a simple password like Sparky or whatever my dog's name is or something like that, they're very easy to crack because every bad guy out there that does cyber stuff has a password file with every word in the dictionary and every name in the world and that kind of stuff. And then they have one with the name followed by a 1, and then the name followed by 1-1, then the name followed by 1-2. So these password files can be very extensive. And all they do is just turn it on and let it hammer against your password stuff until eventually they guess the right one. So, but as long as you have a strong password, it doesn't matter what they do, they're never going to get in. Like one password that's strong is like capital I, love money, $. What's the chance of them having a phrase like that in their password list? So a phrase is easy for you to remember, but very hard for them to guess. So it can't be like I love my wife. That one would be a nice easy one to guess. So some kind of phrase where you can actually add like a special character like $, or something that helps. Alright, so there are some examples. Alright, there's other utilities out there that allow you to perform diagnostic tests or remotely access somebody else's PC. If you've ever checked out logmein.com or gotomypc.com, both of them, at least they used to, I don't know currently, I haven't checked them in a year, allow you as a trial user to download it on one PC, and then you could be here at school and you could actually access your PC at home remotely, securely, which is kind of cool. But we use that in the corporate world, and that way, when somebody calls, we don't just get up and go run to their desk. Think about the Gojo building downtown in Akron. Here's a huge multi-floor building. If every time somebody had a PC problem, I had to get out of my chair and run down there, I'd have to be an Olympic sprinter. So, we just remote in and we fix it that way. So, again, actually, they list log me in, yay! And then they give you the summary. Hooray! Okay. Alright, as far as security software, this is my favorite. It's av-comparatives.org, and they are an independent testing site that doesn't take any ad, like you'll see no ads on their page from antivirus software, things like that, and they actually test all these different security stuff, and they give you their report. So they'll have 10 of the exact same PCs, and they'll install all the 10 different software on there, and then they'll infect all of them with these different viruses, and then they'll see how they did. And I don't think they test Norton/Symantec stuff anymore. I think Norton got tired of placing very low in their scores and actually threatened legal action or something. So this independent company just said, hey, we're just going to quit adding your stuff on there. So if I go to reports, I can pick any test. I can see what kind of performance hit it's going to use, detection test. So I'm going to use real world protection test. And then I'm going to wait. And then here's one for October, and actually it looks like they do one every month now. Holy crap. So hit English. These things are very comprehensive. They'll tell you like, hey, here's the information, here's all the stuff, here's how we tested it. And then they show the different software that they tested. So in this graph, red is bad, so you don't want red. So LavaSoft was obviously the bad, and so was, I've never even heard of this one, Threat Track Viper. But Avira did very well. Avast didn't do too well. AVG did okay. I can't even read what that one is. Bitdefender did very well. But this is a very good site to go, like if you're, let's say your company is looking for antivirus software. You can go here and see which one detects it better, which one takes a performance hit, and you can actually put the stuff all together in a nice little report and look very professional. And hey, here we picked this antivirus and here's why. It had a medium performance hit, but the detection was awesome. And again, you can get a report on anything that they have, and you can see that they have a boatload of different tests. So here's the pass marks. This is for PC benchmarking, really for gaming PCs, where it'll give you your pass mark score. You just have to make sure that you're comparing apples to apples. If you're using version 8, you want to make sure you're comparing it to other people that are running version 8. And if you see old numbers on a website from last year, they're probably using version 7 and things like that. So your numbers will obviously change depending on it. But you can just download. I think you can use there's a free 30-day evaluation, and then after that it's $27. But here's a video card benchmark site, and obviously it's sponsored by Passmark. But they actually show you, here's the Passmark scores for all the popular video cards. So you can just click on one, and you can see like where they scored, and then the average price of these. So Passmark, pretty popular in gaming or performance PC benchmarking. Alright, another one that I like to use is CPU-Z, and CPU-Z will actually show you everything about your processor, what model it is, how many cores it has, what the technology behind it is, and then all the different information you need for overclocking it. Alright, and then looking at my PC, like you can see, and again, obviously this is a testing PC. I run Malwarebytes, and I typically run Avast. Avast typically scores, relatively high in all the different tests, and it's always been one of my favorites. Plus, you can sign up for the free version. The free version will automatically, install updates and things like that. And then every Friday, like when I go home, I typically kick off a Malwarebytes and an Avast scan on my PC and my kids' PCs, and I haven't had any issues since then. Because of that, actually, I now purchase Malwarebytes. I think it's $24 or $22. Sometimes you can get it cheaper, and I can put it on 3 PCs for a year, so it covers me and my 2 kids. And we have not had a virus since we've done Malwarebytes and Avast. And I think it's been 2 years now. And there are other utilities, again, that come with Windows. Like if I go to Run and type in, is it MS Setup? I know MS Config will show me like all the different stuff that's set to start up. And here's where, like if you've got something here that's installed, like Java or this, I can look. And this is a Java update, so this is the little utility that runs and just checks to see if Java is if there's an update for Java, and it's always running. Well, I don't need that to run, so I can turn that off. Now again, I can always click on Java and update it manually, or if I go to a website and it tells me that I need a new version of Java, I can just do it manually there because there'll typically be a link. So there's no need for this to always be running on my PC. If I see this Adobe ARM, again, it's probably some kind of Adobe updater thing or some, but I don't need Adobe every day, so I can turn that off and then hit apply and close, and then I can hit exit without restart, and I'm all set. Alright, then another one I want to talk about, start, run, is MS Info 32. So MS for Microsoft, Info 32. And this works for Windows XP and stuff. I don't know what the new version is for Windows 7. But I would imagine it would not be 32. But I can click on any of my stuff, like hardware or system summary. Here's all the stuff on my PC. Here's the size of the drives, things like that. I can go to my different components. Wait for it. And this is the model of CD-ROM I have. I can go to my sound device, and this is what I have. My network card. And I can find my IP address and all this other different stuff, my MAC address, who makes the network card, that kind of stuff. So a lot of different information in there. So again, there's a lot of tools that come with Windows that a lot of people don't know about. So that's why education is such a great thing. Alright, so that wraps up today's video, and I think this is the last one. So again, if you have any questions, let me know. Next week you guys have your exam, and then the week after that you have a project that needs to be submitted, and then you're all done. Alright folks, have a good one.